not a very flattering angle, but I don't have any of my tech set up or anything, so I'm just doing a video from the car while driving to work. Perhaps the first video I'll post, we'll see. I've been inspired by some of these channels. Oops, sorry, that's my alarm. These guys that just talk into their microphone, but I don't know, for old guys like me, I actually really enjoy those videos. I enjoy listening to them while I'm working. Thing I want to talk about today, it's more of a religious theme because it is Sunday. I have a baby on the way. It's going to be my wife and I's third baby. We're a mixed family, so this will be our sixth kid if you put our prior children together and our current children. And unfortunately, we got bad news that our son, it's a boy, he's going to have clubbed feet. I didn't even know what that was, nor did my wife. Of course, she was freaking out. So was I when we first heard it. Apparently, it's the most common birth defect, and it affects a lot of kids when you think about it. It affects 1 in 1,000 kids. That might not sound like a lot, but if you know statistics, you know that's actually a very high chance of somebody having that birth defect, clubbed feet. I guess what it is, it's like the feet bend inward, and at first we're really bummed out about it. We still are. It's not like we're not stressed about it, because when you go to the doctors, they tell you two different things from two sides of their mouths, if that makes sense. I don't know if I got that expression right. Some people we talk to, they're like, this is nothing. It's absolutely fine. It affects people, but it's like almost nothing once you get it. You know, he'll be walking in no time. Won't affect, when he walks and all that stuff. But then another doctor, sometimes even the same doctor, they'll say, look, it's a lifelong thing. It's difficult. Your kid's not going to have an easy life. And then it's just a roller coaster of emotions. And then within a very short time, and this happened on more than one occasion. We switched hospital systems, and we had the same experience twice. 1 minute, it's nothing, and then the other minute, take out the candles, say a prayer. So, what it has to do with God, of course, it all has to do with God, right? But what I want to pray for. There's a 5% chance, the doctor says, that it could be misdiagnosed and everything will be all right, which is a very low chance, especially after having several ultrasounds. But it's kind of like my children. I'm acting like my children. I'll give an example. They go to me and they say, Dad, I know you're going to say no, but I got to ask you something anyway. And it hurts me when they say that a little bit. It makes me laugh a little, but at the same time it hurts because I don't want to keep depriving them or, look like the overly strict dad. I am a strict dad compared to most American dads, but I don't want to deprive them of some of the good stuff of life. And then they'll ask me it, and yeah, usually I will say no. But when I pray to God, it's kind of like the same thing. And I think about it, and it's so weird that when I pray to God, I try to be coy about it. Like, God, if God's there and he's omnipotent, he knows everything, like, who am I trying to fool, right? So sometimes I'll do that with God. I'll say, God, I know you're probably not going to give me it, but I know it's a long shot, but I know it's probably not likely, but. And of course, he knows what I want. I want my son to be born with no problems. I want everything to be fine. I want him not to have clubbed feet. I want proof. And I almost angle it like, oh God, this will show everyone that the medical system, blah, blah, blah. I want proof that they're not gods like they so much want to be, the people at these hospitals. And I say, God, please let my son just be born normal. I know that's a loaded word, normal, but let him be normal with no problems. And then I make deals with him too. I didn't talk about this with my wife or anything yet, but I've made a deal to a bargain, I guess, is a better word, to concede some of my proclivities if I'm granted this wish, this prayer. And I don't think it's a bad thing to just come out and ask God for something. One of the biggest reasons people don't do that, and I know I did it a lot, especially in my old jobs that I used to have, is you're afraid to ask because you're afraid the answer will be no. And I told my children, look, even if you think I'll say no, just keep asking me. I'll be civil about it. I'll say it in a nice way. And it will always be for your own good. There will always be a reason. It won't just be, depriving you of stuff. But don't stop asking, I tell them. That's the last thing you want to do. And I'm applying that on my own device to God. I still ask him every car ride while I'm doing deliveries. I say, please, God, please let my son have no problems when he's born. Please. And of course the chances are low. I know this. But it's something I still ask. I am afraid, not of rejection, I guess, so to speak, but it's more of, a lack of faith in God. It's easy to pray to God, you get what you want, and then you believe in him. My faith is better than most, but it's quite shaky, I'll just say that. So one of the things that scares me most is he won't give it, and then my faith in God will be shaken. Even more than it is, if I had to reiterate that. But I am asking, and I hope, and I'll update you guys if it actually happened. Here's to hoping, right? And then I guess I told my son this morning, because sometimes my son prays to God for innocuous things. It's cute. It's because he's a young boy, and he's a little immature, so he acts younger than he actually is as well. But he'll say, Dad, I'm looking for this thing. I prayed to God, and I still didn't find it. And I told him it just doesn't work like that. And I got to apply that advice to myself, too. It just doesn't work like that. I do think God doesn't give you a battle you can't handle. Or it might be a form of scaffolding. He gives you a problem that's just a little bit beyond what you want or are used to. And it does make you stronger. So I guess I'll apply that to myself, too. I mean, my son does have clubbed feet. My new son, coming soon. If he does have clubbed feet, then yeah, we're talking weekly doctor visits, cutting the tendon surgery, braces for long time, and then another set of braces for possibly years, and then it could come back again when he's older. And it's rough. But I don't know. The one thing, me and my wife talked about it, we never consider abortion. And we have a friend, or I should say I have a friend. My wife never met him. He's an old college friend. He was always anti-abortion, even when it was uncouth to be anti-abortion. And I think God sort of tested him. And I think he, unless I'm misremembering, Wes, if you're watching, sorry. But I think he thinks God was kind of testing his faith as well, because he had a son who ended up having, I believe, Down syndrome. I'll ask him later. And I remember sitting in the cafe with him. We have these deep talks, and he told me about it. And it would just, I think he might have said it was a test, and it just never came into the discussion abortion. So he really put his money where his mouth is, for lack of a better terms. And lately, in the last few years, I've also become anti-abortion. I'm not really for it anymore. I was totally in that Philadelphia groove where I was super pro-choice, we'll say. That's the words they use, right? But this does tie in. I'm not just rambling, because we found out at about 19 weeks, 20 weeks, that he's going to have clubbed feet pretty early. It was our first ultrasound. And, I told my wife, they wanted to do more tests. They did a blood test for my wife to see if he's going to have mental retardation or all these insert name here diseases, you know what I'm talking about. And nothing came back, but then they wanted to do one where they stick like a needle in the amniotic sac of the pregnant woman. And I don't know, to me that sounds very invasive rather. And I was not for that. I told my wife, I said, look, if they find something, are we going to get an abortion? We have 22 weeks to decide. That was what do you call that? That question wasn't serious. It was more of a rhetorical question because we choose not to. We don't want that. We don't want that anymore, like in our lives. And it's this kind of logic you have to use in this mixed up world. So she said no, and I said, yeah, I don't think so either, so just don't get it. It's not going to help. And then, to add everything on top of that, I'm like, wait, is there something that can be prevented if we get it early? I asked the doctors, and they pretty much reaffirmed what I already believed. They said, no, it's just, you'll know. It's like, but you'll find out later. And I'm like, is there something that can be deterred, prevented if we know this stuff early? No, it's just good to know what you're battling. I mean, we'll know when he comes out. You know, they do tests there as well. I guess we'll know then. But this leads into another topic, and this is the hospital system. And this is our first baby that we're having in America. And it has been torturous, absolutely torturous for someone like my wife, someone like me. And if you're watching this and you didn't turn this off, someone like you as well. We're not for vaccines. We don't do vaccines. It's not the whole 2020 nonsense either. I was against vaccines for many, many years. And in the Philippines and Korea, we did not get them. We don't do it. We don't have any of them, okay? To do my wife's immigration, it cost multi-$1,000s in order for her not to get vaccines. From extra paperwork and getting a lawyer and using proof that we're against all vaccines, not just the 2020 nonsense shot, jab, whatever you want to call it. So we go to the hospital. We tell them this. We're like, look, we want this in there right away, blah, 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 blah. And then the doctor, they just wouldn't drop it. They're like, all right, we don't believe that. I was like, I understand, thanks. You have to do your job. But then she starts snickering. She starts laughing. She starts rolling her eyes. She goes, oh, you know they don't cause autism, right? Like, she's playing the whole RFK thing. This guy in the White House right now, if you're watching this later, RFK, he's kind of coming out against vaccines, saying they cause autism. I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. RFK, he'll come and go. He's inconsequential. He's doing nothing, right? Just like all of them there. This is not a political channel. They're all doing nothing, right? So I was like, yeah, I understand. And then she talks about some vitamin K shot, potassium. And then she starts talking about antibiotic eye goop, right? And then she's like, we want to test your wife for AIDS, chlamydia, gonorrhea, all this stuff, right? Oh, we got to know. Okay, listen, this is my wife's 5th kid. Like, do we really have to do all this, right? This is very, as far as I can tell, uniquely American. This is all new for her. And every appointment, they want to take a piece of her vagina juice. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it in a better way. They want to take a piece of her vagina juice and then like a piece of her asshole cultures too. And it's like gross. And they're like, we want to test it for these diseases just so it doesn't be passed off to the baby. And they won't even let us get a vaginal birth. My wife has prior C-sections, so even with all that, they're just like, we got to do all these tests. We got to do it. And it's just nonsense. It's just, I don't want to sound trite. I don't want to sound basic. I don't know how you want to put it, like a basic bitch or anything. But all these tests are just for money, right? Like, come on, you don't need to do all this. You just want to make your money, right? And it's been torturous. We complain because we got this lady again. And we're like, look, we don't want the vitamin K shot. We don't want the antibiotic ointment, all this. And then she started spouting figures, blah, 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 blah. Then I asked her about the figures. And it's the whole rolling back the lies thing. she said this really high thing. Oh, if you don't get the vitamin K shot, it's like a 120% chance, something like that. And then I said, wow, really? It's that much? And then she's like, well, that's the highest end. But then she says a number that's way lower. And it's so weird. They're weirdos. They look at us like we're the weirdos. But then me and my wife are there, and we're like, what world are we in? These people aren't even on the same planet as us. It's insane. Oh, it's been every appointment we go to, we dread it. And I don't want my wife to feel bad. She's a non-native English speaker, so it's even worse. She's like a very quiet, shy girl compared to anyone in our area, the Philadelphia area, who's loud and boisterous and blah, 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 blah. So she's not like that. No, she doesn't do that. She's very shy. Like, look, I don't want to do this and da. And I had to pretty much step in for her and talk it because that's how things are here. You know, they'll just trample right all over you, especially these doctors. They have this weird complex where they think they're the ultimate in authority. I don't want to say a God complex, but they really do think they know everything. And they act like they have nothing to lose and tell you this information. When they read and do research and they look at contradictive information, they'll lose their money. They'll lose their medical license. I forget what the expression is. I'm kind of going off the cuff here, but nobody is going to study something that goes counter to what makes them money. If you get what I'm saying. I'll try to find the better expression later, put it in the comments or the description or something. But these people are awful. They make me and my wife feel bad every time. They gaslight us. They roll their eyes. They laugh. And they protected each other. They protect each other all the time. They're thugs. Everyone gives cops a bad rap, which deservedly so, perhaps. But they protect each other. They lie. They don't let you videotape. So they say, oh, well, we have no proof she did any of that. Yeah, because you're not allowed to videotape. My state is a two-party consent state. So that won't float either. But it's terrible. And I understand why. This is another thing where they just don't want people having kids, it feels like. Well, I'm pulling into work now. If you have dealt with this or anything, I would love some support in the comments. Be safe out there.